I, Jimmy Carter, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States.
If we were going to go on a crusade across the nation and try to do away with the homosexuals.
Luis Robinson emerged from being booked. Yesterday, a violent hijacker, now accused of killing 2 people, seriously injuring 2 others, and terrorizing about 24 hostages.
I didn't intend to kill him. I just wanted to make everybody on the bus realize that I was serious.
So how about making yourself a part of that 200-year tradition? Take stock in America with United States Savings Bond.
David Berkowitz, indicted for murder, also known as Son of Sam. His lawyer said if he is brought to trial, he will use insanity as a defense.
I just can't believe he's dead. It's terrible. But I just thank God that Elvis died here at Graceland instead of on the road just like any other rock and roll singer. It's just a great loss to everybody, and there's just like an empty feeling inside.
Citizens subjected to violence, vandalism, theft, and discomfort. The blackout has threatened our safety. We've been needlessly subjected to a night of terror.
Here it is mid-morning, about 10:20 a.m., and looting is still going on at this particular supermarket. The reason? There are no cops here.
Have you recently had a close encounter?
I want to speak to someone in charge. I want to launch a complaint.
Close encounter with something very unusual.
What the hell is going on around here?
I'm at an emergency. Sir, this is a dire emergency. A real serious thing. I've just taken a prisoner. It's not a crank call. I've got a 12-gauge sawed-off automatic shotgun. I've got a dead man lying on the trigger. There's 3 shells in the fucking gun. There's 1 in the chamber, and a man with a gun on his neck, wrapped around with a cable, is holding the fucking safety in his hand. And if anybody yanks on me, yanks that gun, makes a false fucking move, we'll die right here. I'll melt these motherfuckers, try to take everything I've got. But if you doubt that I'll kill him, you're reading me wrong. I'm a mad, mean motherfucker. My name is Tony Kiritsis. Kiritsis? K-I-R-I-T-S-I-S. Okay, where are you at, Mr. Kiritsis?
29 East Market. On the 4th floor in Dick Hall's office.
129 East Market.
East Market. Let me tell you something, sir. You tell those guys to play it cool, because this is the real fucking McCoy.
Oh, I believe you.
I hope you're recording all that, are you?
Oh, yeah.
I'm ashamed of the fucking thing I'm doing. I've got to tell you how fucking badly I feel about fucking with you guys like this. It's kind of hard for the average fucking guy maybe to understand this, but it ain't hard for my fucking friends to understand it because they've seen me die for 4 fucking years.
Okay, we just want you to kind of keep calm as you can because you don't...
Shit, maybe I'm calm. There ain't a fucking nerve in my body. Hey, let me tell you, I know I'm on a fucking long, one-way, dead-end fucking street, but I'll tell you one fucking thing. I didn't come up here to back down.
How many people
you better tell this man not to jerk, because if he jerks, his fucking gun's gonna go off. There won't be no fucking trial.
Okay, Tony?
What, baby?
How many people do you have there with you?
I just have one, that's all I wanted.
Just Mr. Hall?
Yeah, just Mr. Hall. How many people told you I was gonna kill you? Did anybody come and tell you? Tell the truth. I told a lot of people I was gonna kill you.
Did you say you had the shotgun on his neck?
Hey, let me tell you something, baby. I didn't come up here to get fucked around.
No.
Now, if you think you can get this son of a bitch off of him without me getting what I want, you guys try it. If they move for that fucking gun, I'm gonna tell you, this man dies. Then they kill me.
Okay,
if they kill me first, then he dies. It's simple as that. I didn't come up here to start a fight with the fucking police department, but I'll tell you one fucking thing. I didn't plan this thing to look like a fucking idiot.
Scared, Tony. I'm scared. The situation is just like he says, officer.
Okay, we believe him. We're gonna get you.
I'm not trying to give you a bunch of shit, Dave, but I'm just trying to tell you the way it is. So what I'd like to do is try to walk him out of here, but see, some fucking hero is going to grab for me if I do, and when they grab for me, it's all over.
Well, that's what we want.
I've got number 5 shot in this fucking gun. He ain't got a fucking chance.
Okay.
This has been the same fucking chance they gave me. None. Absolutely none. I hope they don't think I'm bluffing. David, do they think I'm bluffing? Hey.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm listening.
Do they think I'm bluffing?
No, they don't.
Because I ain't going to jail. There ain't no fucking way I'm going. For no motherfucker. And I've got my finger on the trigger, and it's fired to a dead man.
Should be a lieutenant there, too.
I was in Vietnam, so I've been in firefights before. I wasn't nervous, I wasn't afraid. I figured I'm here to cover this event.
Mention to Charlie 2 and Charlie 5.
Man with a gun, possible hostage situation. They're on the 4th floor, control. We need to shut down the elevators. 129 East Market Street.
Get back, get back away from the wind.
Walk one up to the stairs. But he's not answering his radio. Secure that front door.
Elevators again. 1834-7, loading 347.
Clear the lobby. We're right down the stairs now. Say 9, sir. We're out down the stairs. He has a loaded 1032. Everybody stay ready. Use caution.
Tony someone, I don't know his last name.
Where's he work?
Dick Hall. The guy that's got the gun around him is works for Hall Hot.
Dick Hall's the man with the gun around him?
Yes, he's the manager of Hall Hot.
All right.
They got down to the corner, and Tony's lost. He doesn't know where his car is.
Walking east on Market from Pennsylvania towards Delaware. He does have a shotgun wired to his subject's head.
They turn left toward Washington Street, and right there is a parking garage.
All cars he's south on Pennsylvania from Market. South on Pennsylvania from Market on foot.
American units downtown. The subject holding the 2 city police officers hostage is now walking southbound on Pennsylvania from Market.
Suspect has entered a parking garage on Pennsylvania.
So we gotta cross over for a better shot.
I believe one of those units clear. We'll go that way to CIE. I'll check it.
Look in the window. Get out of here.
Metro Charlie 2, where are you coming from? Walker Street. 10-4 disregard, Charlie 5. Continue, Charlie 2 disregard.
We think he's trying to take a car.
Metro Charlie 2, where are you coming from?
We asked him and he knew for his car, but he refused to give it to him.
10-4 disregard, Charlie 5.
Suspect's coming back out of Pennsylvania. Suspect's moving. Communications, do you have a direction of travel?
From the looks of it, one movement of his trigger finger and Hall's head is gone.
Southbound for now.
Shoot him.
Every time we'd stop someplace, he wanted a car. He said, until the car gets here, we'll start walking. We went down to Washington Street and started walking west.
We're on the suspect westbound of Washington Street. Control, we're on the north side of Washington Street. We need to block off Washington Street somewhere before West Street. Stand by, this stopped.
The longer he stood there and tried to talk to people, the madder he got. Because he wasn't getting any cooperation that he wanted.
one knew what Kiritsis was going to do. For all they knew, he was going to shoot him right there.
Get control. West Mount Washington.
The uniformed officers were kind of rushing ahead, and there were several detectives walking together, talking about, oh, gee, what can we do about this?
You know, the first thing that they taught us is try to find out what the problem is and set up some type of communications with the guy. So I stepped forward and started calling his name.
If I was as dumb as you, I'd have blown his fucking head off. Now get back! What's your fucking name, you dumb motherfucker? Get back!
I saw Mike Grable with his arms open, common gesture, I'm unarmed, I can't hurt you, what do you want?
He turned around and he screamed at me. He says, "Are you crazy?" He says, "You want me to kill this guy?"
Tony turned around and actually pulled Hall as well as the shotgun.
Then they slipped and fell, both of them.
Hold your fire, hold your fire.
Got up, and I remember the look on his face. He was real surprised that that shotgun didn't go off.
And then he reached down to his belt, and that's the first time I realized he had a pistol stuck in the front of his pants.
It started to come out or come loose, and as he was getting up, both of them were getting up, he reached for his weapon, and I'm thinking to myself, well, if he pulls this gun and points at me, I'm going to shoot him.
Tony was close enough to take that pistol out and shoot three policemen. If Tony pulled that pistol, if he'd have fired, I think someone would have killed him. It would have had to. As I got closer, I heard Tony, and he was very angry, and he was yelling at the policemen.
He said he liked police officers. Some of his best friends are police officers. He said, now do your job. That was sort of the dichotomy of the way he thought is he's doing this wild, crazy act, but yet he thought they should be doing their jobs to stop him from doing what he's doing.
I never seen a number bunch of bastards in my life, and I like police. Now you guys start acting like you know something. Shut up! You dumb bastard!
We're passing Capitol. Traffic's blocked ahead of you.
I knew we were in trouble. All he wanted all the way across town is a car. Officer had parked a car long ways right by the path that we were taking, with the door open and the motor running. And I thought, we'll never make it to the other side of the street. And sure enough, when we got to that door, he said, stop. And I knew it. He told me to turn around. He raised my sweater. I knew what he was after. He wanted the handcuffs.
As we're approaching the intersection, we hear a bang. It startled all of us because the first thing we looked at was Hall.
I hear this crash off to the side, and so I panned over. It was just some gawker, that poor guy had, driven up on this whole scene, and, he was looking and ran into the telephone pole. So I went back to Hall.
Tony went over to the car that was the marked police car was running, door open. He slid in, he pulled Hall in behind him. This wire around Hall's neck was extremely tight, and I think Hall was having trouble breathing.
The man is getting in a police car at Senate and Washington. He's driving away. Let's see if I get a ride.
Anybody got a car? Come here, Bill, come here. Has anybody got a car? Jack!
Mike and I talked about it a number of times. It just never got any easier talking about it, because what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And that's really what the officers said to him. Several officers, I think, said, what are you going to do? And we didn't know what he was going to do. And I'm not sure Tony knew what he was going to do.
Mark, you've been following another aspect of this hostage situation. What can you report to us at this time?
Well, Tom, right now, the suspect and his victim are proceeding westbound on Washington Street in an Indianapolis police car with red lights flashing. The car is number 2-132. It was proceeding west on demand from the kidnapper, apparently, as a consequence and part of the hostage situation that developed about an hour ago.
We are about 200 to 300 yards away, line of sight, from a red brick apartment building. The victim and assailant are on the third floor of Wing C, but it's still not known what the man's problem is, psychiatric problem if that be the case. There is very likely to be some very serious conversation going on within the apartment building. Doug O'Brien, WIBC News.
He went inside, me and several officers followed him. He went into his apartment and talked to him for a little bit. He says, everybody better get away from this door. Don't come near this place. He says, I got it wired, so this whole building will go up.
Indianapolis. We are back in contact with Doug O'Brien. And Doug, you say you have gotten a recent advisory from Chief of Police Eugene Gallagher. Can you give us that situation?
That's correct. Gallagher tells us that the apartment apparently is wired somehow to be set off by nitroglycerin, and they're advising everybody to stay away from the east side of this building, because if the nitro is in fact there, and if in fact it does go, it's going to blow out the east side of this three-story apartment building. There are officers trying to negotiate with the gunman, and there is a SWAT team right outside the building waiting for any eventuality.
I had a position where I was straight across from the next building that I could look at to the west. That was Tony Kiritsis' window. Myself being a sniper, I am setting up something to put my gun on, to put my rifle on, and wait for any word to do whatever we need to do.
Mark Watkins just got through talking with Police Chief Eugene Gallagher, and here is his report. Chief Gallagher indicated that police had considered trying to shoot the man downtown as he was proceeding west on Washington Street with his hostage. However, the men from the police department got a good look at the setup on the hostage involving the gun next to the man's head.
It was wired around his fingers and around his arm, so if he let go of it, it would still pull the trigger. He had a cable around a man's throat attached to the shotgun, so there's no way to get the shotgun away from the man's head. So I told him, whatever you want, just let me know.
He didn't say anything about his intentions?
He said that he was going to get everything he wanted, or he would shoot the man. That's about all. He never did tell me exactly what he wanted. He just kept walking.
Did Mr. Hall say anything as you were walking along the road?
No. He appeared to be fairly calm for the situation. He did what he was told and walked when he was told to walk and stopped when he was told to stop.
Would you describe the suspect as being extremely nervous?
No.
He knew what he was
for
doing.
The situation, I'd say he's fairly calm. He knew exactly what he was doing.
You've known Tony for a number of years. What kind of guy is he?
Well, he's always been a kind of reasonable man. He just seems to be excited over, he felt he's being beat out of some money over this real estate deal, and apparently this loan company, whatever loan company it is.
If he says he's going to do something, is he the kind of guy that'll do it?
Well, I would say yes, as long as I've known him.
Now, you were up there talking through the door to him. What did he tell you?
Well, he just told me that he wasn't going to go to jail, and he's going to see to it he's treated right on that loan that they beat him out of, or he probably wouldn't come out there. Neither would Mr. Hall. whoever that is, apparently president of this real estate or loan company.
Now, do you think, knowing him, that saying something like that, he really means it?
I definitely do, without any question.
You could see up there in his apartment he had strings all the way across. Well, what happened, he had cans of gasoline with candles. And if a string broke and the candle went down and they hit the gasoline, then away it went. And because of that, the snipers couldn't do anything. I mean, they had a bead on him many, many times up there where they could have popped him if they want, but they're afraid if they broke the window with the shot that it would trigger this thing and away she went.
The dangers that lay there up there. I mean, he's been telling us all along the place is totally wired. I mean, it looks wired. From everything we can see, you know, confirmed with EOD, state police, sheriff, and all of our brain thrust together, it looked like it was a very well-wired apartment.
I went out and talked to him through the doorway, asked him to please come out. And it was almost like he was almost crying that he couldn't come out. He was sorry, he was sorry, he was sorry, but he could not come out. And please don't come in, Bob, because it's wired.
The information got to the core people out at the apartment complex that, hey, this guy's known to law enforcement. Well, what's he been involved in? Well, not in that way. You know, they see him. He's a West Side guy, comes in a restaurant where they have coffee in the morning. Really, get them out here.
Frank, you know Tony fairly well. Do you know what precipitated this, what happened today?
Well, this has been going on for like 3 or 4 years. It's concerning some property that he owns that he wants to get financed, or the bank wants to second mortgage it, or something of this nature. It's a financial type situation, and I felt like that he feels like that he's been discriminated against or something, and this is, I think, precipitated this hostage and seizure.
Okay, what happened after the other 2 incidents? He one time held a city official 7 or 8 years ago, then he held his sister for some time.
Yes.
What happened after those 2 incidents? Did he just go free?
Well, I arrested him one time for assault and battery with intent to kill, and he was put on probation. He took a couple shots at his brother.
Any advanced warning on this, or is this something that just came out of the clear blue sky this morning?
Well, see, I don't know, because I haven't seen Tony for like 2 or 3 years, and I see his brother, you know, like weekly, and Tony communicates with his brother quite a bit, and got a lot of respect for him, and he thinks probably more of his brother than anybody.
And that's who they're going to get now?
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Frank.
I was in business in Brown County, and my wife hit me on the radio and said, call home right away. I went into a service station on east of Nashville on 46. It was a Shell station. And I went in and I said, Steve, may I use your telephone? And he said, look up at the TV. He said, look what the hell's going on in Indianapolis. And I looked up there and I said, my God, I said, that's my brother. That's how I learned. You think the worst when you see that, you know, getting killed, killing somebody, all the things you don't want to happen. I called Frank Love and told him I would be on my way, and he asked me, he said, Jim, do not drive. He said, we're going to send a helicopter. He said, where can it land?
He has 3 brothers, but he doesn't like 2 of them. The one he does like, Jimmy Kiritsis, was brought here by helicopter from Brown County. Tony Kiritsis has rejected any attempts for anybody to get near the apartment and talk with them. The situation is, he says he's not insane, he knows what he's doing.
Okay, Josh, thank you. And of course, Josh is on the scene. At any moment anything develops, Sarah will be on the air.
It was very obvious from those early conversations that we were dealing with somebody who was very, very sick and was capable of being violent.
I'm going to mention the evacuation. Beg pardon? I'm going to mention the evacuation. Any reason to? Just give us some way to get into it. Just do your own thing, but... is there any reason not to do it? Hell, I don't know. Okay. If there's any reason not to... I've never done this before. Howard, the gunman, Mr. Kiritsis, and the mortgage executive, Mr. Hall, are still in the third floor apartment. Nothing much has changed except that about 500 people are being evacuated from these apartments. They're going to be spending the night at various Indianapolis area motels. However, we understand the gunman is watching Channel 6. He's made a request, and here to fulfill it, we have Deputy Marion County Prosecutor George Martz.
Tony, as you know, I've talked to you on the telephone. You've made certain specific demands, and in attempting to comply with these demands, I have requested a personal friend of yours, Mr. Cliff Chapman, to read a statement to you on behalf of Meridian Mortgage and Hall Hoddle.
This statement I am reading has been authorized by Mr. M.L. Hall, the chairman of the board of Meridian Mortgage and Hall Hoddle. This is a public apology to Anthony Kiritsis for all wrongs Meridian Mortgage or Hall Hoddle have committed in respect to Mr. Kiritsis. Thank you.
That was a statement from Cliff Chapman of the mortgage company.
Well,
that
we're
was
not
one
allowed
of
to ask
several
Mr.
demands
Chapman
made by the gunman,
questions.
Mr. Kiritsis.
He is
The
an
authorities are now
employee of
going
the
about resolving some of those.
This has been a special report from Eyewitness News
There's a
Center.
little confusion there with the noise in the background, but Kiritsis was angry apparently over the mortgage loan arrangement with Mr. Hall's company. He demanded an apology. He demanded that any financial remuneration that was going to come because of penalties, because of what had been done, be paid by the company. His demands were met. He asked that it be on Channel 6 and on WIBC, and that is what we know at this date. Hank, are you still out there?
Yes, I'm here.
Are there any other demands that you know of?
There apparently were some other demands. Hold on a second, I'll find out exactly what they are.
No arrest, no psychiatric treatment, the admission of guilt by the people, which he has now received, as well as appropriate damages, which again were promised in the statement here this evening. As to whether it will ensure Mr. Hall's release, that we'll have to wait and see.
So that's what we've been doing, as we've been doing all day, just waiting.
Thank you, both of you, Hank and Dennis. We brought you this live report and the statement that was made because we have been requested to do so by the police department. We believe in a case like this, it is important that we cooperate, and I'm sure you would agree too. We'll now return you to our regular programming. We will keep you in touch with any other developments. Good night.
This has been a special report from Eyewitness News Center.
Fred Hickman was the major domo here on news radio at that time, WIBC. He was well respected, and he was like a Walter Cronkite here at radio.
All right, Gary, back in the newsroom. Shortly around 6:20, I received a call from an operator of the Indiana Bell Telephone Company. She said Mr. Tony Kiritsis had been trying to get into the newsroom. He has a lot he wants to say. We told him that this would be for recording and for the air. There are those of you who may be offended by some rather strong language. I would advise you to tune out.
I've been an angry man for 44 years. Nobody has had the adversity that I've had. But in spite of that, and without arrogance, and without putting my friends down, and without being egotistical, I am the strongest man mentally that I know. The average guy that would have gone through this would have already had a heart attack and or a stroke. These guys are lucky they're dealing with me, because some nervous Norman would have already shot them. Now, I'll tell you what these people tried to do, sir. It's almost indescribable. To the average man, he will be unable to comprehend it. These people betrayed, they set me up, they schemed to ruin a life, a human life, my life. You've got 100 armed officers around here trying to get a shot at me. They had a couple hundred down on the street yesterday morning. I dared them to shoot me. I didn't go down there to be a buffoon. I went down there for vengeance. And by God, I'll have vengeance. And I'll tell you something while we're on here. They made that statement last night. Not bad, but completely and totally inadequate. They're going to say we had to do this because he had our son with a gun on his head. He was going to blow him up. Now let me tell you something. I'm going to walk out here a free man. They're not going to book me. They're not going to mug me. They're not going to print me. And they're not going to take me to a psychiatrist because I don't need one. Now, you goddamn right I planned it. I planned it the first day I signed that mortgage in 1972, December the 19th. I told this man and his father, in their office over a period of 4 years, repeatedly, almost explicitly, that I would kill any man that set me up with this kind of greed. I'm not a rich man. I'm a poor man. I never wanted to be rich. It didn't bother me. I could go plodding along here, being poor, working like a dog, and breaking even and be happy as a dog in dog heaven. But nobody, sir, nobody is going to set me up and take everything that I own. I've made a lot of sacrifices in my time. I'm a 44-year-old man. I've never been drunk. I've never been married. I've never been engaged. I've never gone steady. I forsook marriage because I had a lot of responsibility. Fuck these people. They played God and lost. I'm a man that's fighting for everything that I own, sir. Do you have a wife and family, Fred?
I sure do, Tony.
How many kids you got?
We have 5.
How old are they, Fred?
Oh, they range in age between 12 and 28.
You love them?
You better believe I do.
Let's say they set you up, and they said, we're going to take your car, and we're going to take your house, and we're going to take your wife, and we're going to take your children, and then they're going to laugh at you. Would you be ready to kill Heckman?
Be awfully mad, sir.
Would you be ready to kill Heckman?
I don't know what I'd be ready to kill, but I'd...
Ready to kill? Don't lie. I don't lie. Why do you lie? You'd kill in a minute. They have ruined my life. But I'm a mean motherfucker. They aren't going to intimidate me, and they aren't going to humiliate me. I've been a goddamn patsy all my life. I told this motherfucker up there, after all they've done, that I still couldn't hate him, but I could sure as hell kill him. Now, as I say, they're going to document everything that they have done.
Okay, Tony, I'll tell you what. We're going to stop the tape here. What I will do, and you can listen if you want, I'm going to play your tape back on the air now.
Fred said that at some point, Jim Hilliard, who was our program director, called him into the office because they were all live on the radio and said, Fred, what are we going to do about all those fucks?
Yes, I can, Jan, and we have been here all night. At the beginning of the night and right up until just a few minutes ago, there's been kind of an uneasy stillness around the apartment complex. Now, in the last few minutes, things have become pretty tense. I'm standing here now with Jimmy Kiritsis.
He's not a desperado like he's being painted up to be. He's not a thief. He never asked for $5 million ransom like it was reported. He never held my sister 3 years ago or last October, whenever it was, they said it was, for $50,000. Them statements are untrue. And naturally he is quite concerned with the profile that's been painted of him. I would like to resolve it, and if everybody's willing and everything goes well, maybe we can resolve it this morning.
Okay.
He started to make a number of legal claims about how he had been cheated and how he had these legal claims against the Meridian Mortgage Company. And also one of his demands that they finally were able to get was that he was not to be prosecuted. He called it an immunity agreement. The local authorities said, well, maybe we ought to get some lawyers involved.
At mid-afternoon, one of Kiritsis' attorneys, John Ruckelshaus, came out to the apartment complex but would say nothing about...
I got a call from Chief Gallagher and says, Jack, Tony wants you here as his lawyer. Well, you know, like when Harry Truman sent me a telegram and got me in the Army, I said yes, so out I went.
Have you examined the immunity offer yet?
We don't know yet. We just out here and we're going in. That's all I can say.
They both were brought in basically as lawyers for him. They were trying to diffuse the situation as much as everybody else, but at the same time protecting their clients' interests.
Right now, WIBC's Tom Cochran is on the phone from the Crestwood Apartments. Tom?
Mark Watkins and Doug O'Brien left here just moments ago. They made a fast track down to the lobby of the apartment complex where much of the media is actually pulled up. And apparently there was a statement forthcoming from some official capacity here. Mark is now coming back into the room and perhaps can give us an advisory as to what that flurry of activity was all about just shortly before the noon hour.
The state police issued a statement that really was not anything new, but we'll play it for you with a few questions that we posed to State Police Lieutenant Dick Jones.
Considered, no.
Have there been any additional demands?
No additional demands.
What about the problem with the immunity? Have you made up your mind whether you're going to give it to them?
This is a problem that will have to be resolved by the Marion County Prosecutor's Office.
Well, what are they going to do? I mean, is there any indication they're going to reject it or approve it or what?
Immunity has been discussed a number of times in the conversation. However, there's been no resolution of the question.
Basically, then we're at the same point we have been for the past 30 hours. That's he's calling the shots and we're just waiting.
That would be a pretty fair assessment, yes.
Exactly, Lou. Within the last 25 or 30 minutes, the situation has deteriorated some. To what extent exactly, we don't know. Although there has been a good deal of yelling and screaming going on over the telephone and through the door.
It became apparent to us during the course of this event that Tony Kiritsis' real window on what was occurring was WIBC radio. He was in contact with Fred. Fred was back in contact with him, but he was also listening.
The Army bomb squad that's here has begun to try and think of ways to somehow get in without setting off the explosives. We're told unofficially they could get in without setting them off if Kiritsis were incapacitated.
That particular moment when the report went that the SWAT team was prepared to move, it became frighteningly clear what kind of implication there was to this kind of live broadcast journalism.
How you doing, my friend?
Those motherfuckers just broadcast something on your fucking radio station. Now they're trying to lie about it, Fred. And I don't like it. Where the fuck? Don't tell me what I heard.
Wait a second.
You know goddamn well what I heard.
Tony,
I heard it, and they said it, and now they're trying to act like I was hearing things.
Tony?
I don't like it.
Tony, I just got.
They just called you and had you call me.
Hey, wait, I'm home, Tony. I don't know.
They just called you and had you call me, right?
I heard yell.
Okay. You heard what I heard, right?
No, I didn't, Tony. I was sound
You're
asleep.
a fucking liar, Fred.
Hey, you know I don't lie to you now. You know I don't lie to you. I haven't lied to you yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tony, really?
Mr. Heckman, please. I respect you. You've been a hell of a man.
Thank you, sir.
If those cocksuckers are on us, tell them to get two of them across the fucking hall now. Right now.
Okay.
Lift down your shirt, Fred. It's goddamn short. I'll have vengeance if nothing else, and I ain't gonna take a chance on it. Now!
Right. Okay, Tony, listen.
Hello.
Yeah, this is Fred.
Yeah.
Very agitated.
No kidding. Yeah.
What is it we said?
Well, I don't know. Obie actually said it. Perhaps he can tell you. They feel pretty strongly about you coming out here. They'll send a police car for you.
Yeah, hey, fine. Yeah, I'll be glad to do what I can.
Okay, they just, Tony says you're one of the few that he will talk to her.
He won't talk to me now, because he just hung up on me twice. You know, I speak to Obie. See what...
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
What was this he said?
I don't really remember. It was some general comment about how bomb squad individual had indicated earlier on to the effect that if Kiritsis became incapacitated, they could probably get inside the room without setting it off.
Paul, the situation right now is actually rather tense. Within the past 20 minutes, Tony Kiritsis gave an order that everyone get out of the building. There, of course, have been police in the building, as well as some friends and relatives of Tony who have been talking with him. He gave an order to get out of the building.
You don't want to say anything to set the guy off. And maybe what you're saying doesn't appear to be incendiary, but it is.
Yeah.
Your brother Jimmy asked me to call you. This is Fred Heckman again, Tony.
Goddamn you! You tell that goddamn command post to call me, Mr. Heckman. I like you. Pardon my vulgarity. You have him call me now!
The command?
Now!
Okay, the command post? All right, sir.
So Fred was kind of thrust into the position as a negotiator.
Do it.
Okay.
It's not live. Just go ahead and do the interview.
Okay, fine. Okay, they're setting up a negotiating team inside this van in back of us. How effective do you think that will be?
Well, I think at this time we have to try almost anything. Tony is coherent enough to reason with somebody, and his attorney is talking on his behalf, and I think it'll be productive.
And then the FBI sent in this hostage negotiator psychologist who had a heck of a reputation. I mean, he had a countrywide reputation on these things. And he, of course, was trying to size Tony up as to, you know, how to handle him and how to direct questions to him and don't get him excited and all this kind of stuff. And he really knew what he was doing.
I had a fella in class, and it was Mr. Gallagher. He got on the phone to the director of the FBI and asked if I could be sent out there to assist him in negotiating.
He was the first person that described himself as a profiler, and I'd never even heard the term before. But he said that he could, by looking at how Mr. Kiritsis had built his gun and how he dressed, he pretty much had Tony's mental side pegged. He's the one that then told us certain things to do and certain things not to do in dealing with him. And in formulating our approach of basically conceding to Tony, that was all based upon the psychology of Mr. Kiritsis that Patrick came up with. And he said the person with this personality type needs to be in control of the situation, and any time that you try to take that back, then we're going to have a situation that becomes very, very dangerous.
In Indianapolis, a man named Anthony Kiritsis is still holding hostage a real estate executive. The drama is in its second day, and our man, Mike Jackson, is there.
What kind of a man is Anthony Kiritsis? Friends of his who have come out to the apartment complex to dissuade him from doing anything rash say he is an emotional man, a man prone to anger. Police say he has a record mainly for beating people up. One policeman who didn't want to be identified, a man who said he grew up with Kiritsis, says he is a good friend and a bad enemy. He had purchased this 17 acres of land, cleared many of the trees himself, hoping to start a shopping center. He said he had some commitments from a grocery store chain offering about $3 million to start a center. Then he says the mortgage company moved in and lured the prospective clients away to other properties. One of Kiritsis' demands was that the company apologize for that, and it did. Today, Kiritsis said in a radio station telephone interview he does not believe the company's apology and intends to go free. Authorities say their only hope is to keep Kiritsis talking, so his family and friends are doing that through the door of his apartment. They are convinced that if the talking stops, people will die. Mike Jackson, NBC News, Indianapolis.
Kevin, it may well be that Fred has become perhaps involved in negotiation. He merely got a phone call from the FBI. They asked him to come out as quickly as possible, and he has done so.
We were able to sit down with Fred and tell Fred, hey, make upbeat comments, get him pepped up again. And he would do it, and all of a sudden, Kiritsis responded.
I'm sorry I was so angry yesterday. I get tired of hearing on the radio and various media that they're going to save Mr. Hall, and they never say a goddamn thing about me.
Listen, Tony, let's pursue this thing now so that the two of us can go on down this line.
Until late last night, man, I'll tell you, it was just terrible in here. Terrible.
Well, okay, the night is past, Tony. The morning is with us, and
believe me,
we've got a new...
I'm very apprehensive about what they might drum up on this immunity thing and give me some kind of a false thing, and then when I walk out, they're going to arrest me. And I'm going to tell you, Mr. Heckman, they might get that job done. But if they do, heaven help them.
Tony, do you know what I don't want? I don't want you and Mr. Hall, I don't want you to be, the two of you to be a damn statistic.
Hey, baby, I'm going to tell you something. I've said it 1,000 times, and it doesn't embarrass me to say it. I do not want to die. I never have wanted to die. I'm not afraid to die. I'm a very, very vibrant person. I enjoy the outside. I enjoy working. I enjoy living. I enjoy people. There's a hell of a lot I haven't done. The thing I've done most of, and I don't begrudge it, is I've worked like a dog. I'd like to live a little before I die, Fred.
Well, that's what some of your friends, when they called me, they said, Tony started working at an early age. He assumed some responsibilities. He told you the other day that he had never married, etc., and he worked his life, and that's...
You better believe that, pal. And baby, let me tell you something. I've had my heart broken by people close to me so badly that I really didn't think that I'd come out of it. It's been a hell of a thing.
Well, Tony,
believe that.
Let's see if we can work it through then.
Yeah, pal.
Let's see if we can work it through.
I'll be in touch with you. You let me know, will you, Fred?
Well, just keep listening to 1070 there, Tony, and I'll give a call if I need you on some further development.
Thanks, Mr. Heckman.
Thank you, Tony. Good morning.
They could understand a mood and understand a mood well enough to sort of utilize where it is in sort of an up or a down cycle to sort of control and manipulate. I thought that was fascinating.
Kiritsis was pretty easy to chart, but what you had to be very careful when he was down in that low level, that's the area where despair sets in, and they make judgments like, I've nothing to live for, so I might as well kill this SOB.
There have been some published reports this afternoon quoting prosecutor James Kelly, who has been out of town during this incident. He's in Los Angeles attending a conference. Quoting Kelly as saying that if immunity from arrest is what's needed to prevent death or prevent injury, he is prepared to grant it.
Good evening. I'm in a room near the police headquarters outside the apartment of Tony Kiritsis, where he's holding Dick Hall hostage. We've been requested airtime by the Marion County Public Prosecutor's Office in order to give an address by Deputy County Prosecutor George Martz, an address apparently aimed at Tony Kiritsis himself. Now here's Mr. Martz.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to read a letter from the Office of the Prosecuting Attorney of Marion County, James F. Kelly, Prosecutor. This document is dated February 9, 1977. It's entitled Letter of Immunity Granted to Anthony George Kiritsis. Mr. Anthony George Kiritsis. The Marion County Prosecutor, James F. Kelly, does hereby confer and grant to Anthony George Kiritsis immunity from prosecution with reference to the abduction of Richard Hall and all subsequent acts done or alleged to have been done are caused by the said Anthony George Kiritsis. This document is signed James F. Kelly, authorized by David L. Rimstead. Mr. Kelly has been contacted by myself on 2 occasions today. The last time approximately 10 minutes ago. He is fully aware of this agreement, and you have his assurance that the terms of this agreement will be strictly enforced.
I know there were some meetings there where Ruckelshaus confronted Rimstead, after the immunity tender was made, and put him on the spot and said, do you intend to honor this? Used some colorful language in that regard. And as he described Rimstead making some squirms and turns and said yes.
A few moments ago, I spoke with Tony's brother Jimmy to see how he feels about the offer of immunity.
If you just bear with us, maybe we'll have something, hopefully.
When was the last time you talked to Tony?
I talked to him this morning.
Still calm?
Yes, very calm.
How do you feel about the offer of immunity? Do you think it's a good one?
Yes, it's a very good one.
Have you recommended it to Tony?
I told him it was a very good one. I don't recommend it. He's very capable and very intelligent, and he'll make up his own mind.
From your point of view, though, it's a good one?
Yes, it's a circumstance, a very good one. You just walk away.
Are you hopeful this thing can wind up today?
Yes.
Let me ask you another question. If immunity is granted, what effect might this have, do you think, on people who might be considering the same course of action? Some people might consider that this would encourage them to do this kind of thing. What do you think?
Well, I think that's a possibility, but I don't think it had anything to do with the situation that we were confronted with. I mean, that possibility. We had to do what was necessary, and it's been worked out to everyone's satisfaction. I mean, the police agencies were thoroughly consulted. The prosecutor's office worked with them, and in this particular instance, it was the thing that was done.
Do you think the public would accept a man who would put a shotgun to another man's head going free?
Well, there's going to be some that will object to it, sure. And there's going to be some that will think that it was the proper thing to do. We're going to be second-guessed, but that's part of life.
The big demand has been immunity. First, the opportunity to voice his complaint against the mortgage company, of which Hall was an executive, but secondly, the grant of immunity, that nothing be done to him because of what Tony Kiritsis has done. That offer has been offered. That offer has been made to Tony Kiritsis by the Marion County Prosecutor's Office. And the big question tonight as it was last night and as it was this morning, is whether Tony Kiritsis is going to accept that. The sun is setting out here, but the story is certainly far, far from over, and so we wait.
And then we had the concept of creating a stage. That's why we all retreated to the lobby of that apartment building. That was meant for him to see on television to suck him out. We knew that once he saw it, he'd say to himself, that's where I should be.
Right, I talked to him, I bet, half a dozen times on the phone. The last of which, I called him and said, we got the note, promissory note for $5 million. No answer. Phone rang, rang, rang. And the next thing I heard, somebody said, oh God, here he comes down.
He's coming out, he's coming out.
All you people who are watching on television, thank you for taking such a...
We interrupt our regular program schedule to bring you the following special report from ABC News.
Turn the goddamn cameras on. I'm going to show you something. Read that, pal. Read it. Turn the cameras on. All three, hold it. I want on national television. I've been called a kidnapper, an extortionist, a thug, and everything else. I want it on all three national channels. I've got friends all over the country. You read it.
And I sort of go through the double doors, and I am struck by what is the most bizarre scene I've ever seen in my life.
They goddamn near made me blow his goddamn brains out.
We have these ranking officers and Fred Heckman standing behind Tony, who's holding the gun to Dick's head, and out here in the audience are all of these cameras and reporters. And it's as though the oxygen has gone out of the room. Everybody is on edge.
As being the illegal... Hold it, I want this goddamn thing understood. I'll read it. February 10th, 1977. I want a glass of water. This statement is being made to try and state the items that Mr. Kiritsis alludes, and I don't like that word, I charge, and they've admitted it, alludes to as being illegal and unethical acts of the whole group. This lease negotiation approved the Kiritsis site and had a definite interest in building there. Give me a drink, pal. Give me a drink. Good enough? All right, go easy. Yeah, and I'm sober, friends. I had 6 drinks in 1976, and I haven't had any this year. This was presented to us and was potentially a good business deal, but we found it impossible to agree on terms satisfactory to our best interest, their best interest. I went up there to borrow money to build a 10,000-foot restaurant that would have grossed between $1 million and $2 million a year, and these motherfuckers shoved it to somebody else. I had a lessee who guaranteed me $100,000 a year rent plus 10% over $1 million, and I could have built the building for $220,000 and put $100,000 worth of equipment in it. Listen to this one. It's almost fun. This trooper right here, come here, Mark, a hell of a good friend of mine. A lot of friends of mine here. Has seen me about every night for 3 or 4 years out in a couple of restaurants around here having coffee. Too goddamn desperate to do anything else, so goddamn mad couldn't think good. And he always wondered what was wrong. Now he knows. Right, Mark? Hell of a man. Good cop, this guy. Good cop.
His eyes, the eyes of Tony will occasionally dart around the room, and if he sees someone he recognizes, he will acknowledge them and perhaps have a comment or two about them. All week he has talked about revenge. Part of that revenge is being acted out tonight. An almost empty and hollow look in the eyes of Dick Hall as he gazes around the room, and he will make eye contact with people, but it's almost as though it is just a pro forma gesture, showing very little emotion.
Yeah, and I suspect he must believe that is what he must do, because he could trigger the situation if he should react one way or the other.
This brave young man and his father would have said, Tony, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Because you're a nice fella and basically really love you, we wouldn't hurt you for anything. We'll take the cream. We'll take the front 10 acres there for $130,000, and you can have the back 7 where all the hogs shit. Mr. M.L. Hall, this gentleman's father, also states that he personally takes responsibility for these improprieties. I'm going to frame that. I'm through. Where's my attorney?
He had this thing about he wanted everybody to hear what had been done to him, how he was wronged. I mean, that was his litany over and over and over again. Should we keep on with this? What if he kills this man in front of everybody, let alone the language, which was not heard on TV at that time on any channel? And it was surreal.
I think he wanted to tell his side of the story. As far as the public knew, Kiritsis was a madman. He was bright enough that he understood that and saw how he was being portrayed. And so I think he called Fred to try to get his story out. If I can get Fred to let me air my side of the story, then maybe people will see my point.
Hi, Fred.
Hello,
You're going to be late for work in the morning, pal.
I think I'm going to sleep late.
Easy. I don't know if you can get away with that, can you?
Not really.
I have to say again that Mr. Fred Heckman here of WIBC...
Fred Heckman, in my opinion, was a Jew. He was thrown into a bad situation, but he was a gentleman through the whole damn thing.
I have some people that might be watching this in various places, and I'm not trying to be funny, and I never did like notoriety, and I don't like it any better tonight. My aunt's in Akron, Ohio, and my cousins, and some damn good Greek friends in the state of Florida, and some people I was in the Army with in New England, and I want them to know that, by God, I was right.
Lee and Lou, Paul Page is back in the back of the room now, and we're going to try and make some contact with Paul. Go ahead, Paul.
Tom, we continue to watch in the back of the room. I'm keeping my voice low because of the nature of the circumstance here. We have a man who is very anxiety prone. He continues to stand with an automatic shotgun, jammed him against the back of the man's skull. Tony continues to move from a position of happiness to one of somewhat depression. It's a very, very, very dangerous atmosphere at the moment. If the shotgun, well, there's no real change in the room, but it would not only injure his hostage, it's going to injure an awful lot of people in this room. We'll continue to watch and we'll report back.
I also have to apologize to this man's family. I am sorry I humiliated this man this way, even though he must have surely had it coming.
Every once in a while he'd look at Hall in the back of his head, and the look on his face, I thought, oh God, he's going to pull that trigger.
I went to Gene Gallagher and I said, Gene, I'm getting a little nervous. He's almost sounding suicidal.
And Mulaney was standing right next to me, and he says, my God, he's going to shoot him on television.
That was the scariest part to me. He would laugh, and then he would cry.
Yeah. You know, for a goddamn dummy, I lucked out. I'd like to please. A lot of nice people called me in 2 or 3 days and told me that they were behind me. And I want to thank them.
They're behind you.
I want to thank my brothers, Jimmy and George, Mark and John, Johnny there. I can't think of his last name. Johnny Ferguson. Billy Cotton, and the people that supported me, and I can tell you, by God, I was in trouble. I was in a hell of a lot of trouble. You saw one of these goddamn things off and kidnap somebody, I'm going to tell you something, fellas, there ain't much left in that old road. I said when I started out, I figured I'd be on a long, narrow, one-way dead-end road, and that's what it was.
Tony was becoming so riled up that Gallagher was going, okay, this is it. You know, I've got to do something. because he's going to blow this guy's head off on live TV.
If they felt that Tony had finally gone to the point too far that he was going to eliminate Dick Hall, Tony was going to be taken out.
Chief Gallagher told Josh, when I retire, come talk to me about the plan to kill Tony. They had talked to a doctor at the hospital and said, what's the best way to kill Tony instantly? And he said, put a gun behind his ear and pull the trigger.
My role, if I was given the nod, was to try to jam the shotgun itself with the cylinder on the side where you eject shells. And if you notice, there was a sleeve across that cylinder part of that gun. It would have been almost impossible for me to grab it and jam it at the time.
Chief Gallagher had a gun in one pocket and a handkerchief in the other. When he pulled the handkerchief out, that meant that he was going to shoot and kill Tony. He said 3 times he reached into his pocket for the handkerchief during the press conference. And he said 3 times he put it back.
This is Chief Gallagher of the Indianapolis Police Department, and also that damn fine man, and this man was fair with me. Damn fair with me. Well, hey, this man is safe.
The only thing I wanted at the time was for this to end without anybody getting hurt. Had I went for the shotgun, made a mistake, Dick Hall would have been dead, Tony Kiritsis been dead.
Yeah, Tony, come on, this Ruck. We're going
Hi.
to work for you.
Come here, you're awful bashful.
I'm the
Would
shy
you
one.
like to smile for us?
For you, I will.
I
We're
shaved
going-
before I came over here, and you never even came out. Get that goddamn thing done.
We're going right now, Tony.
You weren't a good attorney, I don't know what I'd do without you.
I was not aware at the time that there was some negotiations in the back to bring this out to Tony that he had won.
Waiting on that settlement, waiting on that $5 million that I just stole.
Pardon me? You want some more room again?
We ought to have some more water. I need a little. And I
Here,
think,
babe.
here, Dick.
I'm on the job.
Give it to Dick.
Give Dick. Here, Dick. Got it?
George, if you can get out in front of them goddamn
Oh, I'm
cameras, you're
sorry.
not going to be any more of my shows.
I'm upstage. Yeah.
You know that?
Sorry. You're doing a single. My fault.
Mark, pull my pants up. You bastard, quit that.
A little bit of butt in there, you'd have to hold him.
No, it's not.
That's it. I've had it. I'm sorry. It was my turn. It was my turn to bat. You believe that?
Tony, you want to go back in one of the rooms until they get to
Yeah, let's get out of here. Where's it cool?
Where's Frank at? Where's it cool? Oh, wait a minute.
I want to thank the people that supported me. I want to thank the people that were fair. I'm sorry about my language, and I'm sorry that this thing had to happen.
Tony, follow me.
Okay.
Follow John. Take you back there. We'll go with you. Dutchman, come on.
We're talking. This news conference is going along. It's being broadcast live, and all of a sudden, the focus of the news conference and his hostage move out into this other room, and the media is kind of standing there like, what's going on? What's going on? What do we do?
Okay, so they are out of sight. They're at the apartment complex stool, and we can't yet know whether the gun has been de-rigged or whether or not they are even attempting that yet. But we can certainly guess that they won't make that attempt until they believe Kiritsis is absolutely amenable to it.
Yes, it is his show now. He has had his media spectacle again tonight. Now he is now away from the lights and the microphones and the cameras.
He is so much in control with that gun. All that has been removed from this so far has been the explosives. He is still in the apartment complex. It is simply a different apartment in that complex, and there are people with him. But conceivably, demands could suddenly reappear. So, yes.
So then at the end was just the payday, was the $5 million promissory note that we were willing to give. And that was to be done when he released the hostage. We would sign the note, and that would be the end of the story.
It's been a son of a bitch, Freddie. I can't believe it, and just like I said, I'll flat guarantee you, without your support, man, I'd have been a doomed man.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that that immunity wouldn't have come through. There was absolutely there was far too much opposition, until some of the opposing evidence counter, in my favor began to come out a little bit, man.
What's that plastic thing on there for?
Well, that, young man, was so one of you flashy little devils wouldn't go over and hit my bolt and cock it open and blow my brains out. See, it covers up the bolt.
Okay, Paul, I'm presently outside the building where the really amazing news conference of sorts took place moments ago. What happened was that ended, and Tony and Dick Hall, again still attached by the gun, moved down a hallway in that building. At that point, the police ordered all news personnel out of the building.
It's nice and cool in here. What I tell you, I stuck one of these in your ear for 3 days, and you had one in mine for 4.5 years. I'm sorry, man.
Here, Bob. Harry, Tony wants to talk to you.
Harry, baby, just got the signed paper. It's all over, man. I got $5 million. You tell Ma, and I'll be down there. Just don't worry about it. You okay? You... No, hell, I'm free, man. I'm free. You just hang on there. I'll be down there, man. We've got it. It's been hell. You've been a hell of a friend. You watch that TV. Will you, baby? Thanks, pal. Chuck? Chuck, baby? Are we done, honey? Yeah. Get him off of there, Mark.
Okay, now it's time.
Jesus Christ, I've seen Boy Scouts work quicker than that. Hold that for me.
I never drafted
Hold
one
it.
faster than that. Wait a minute. Watch it now.
Now clip it back on there.
There you got it.
Watch it off your hand, Tony. You know what I'd like to do? Don't shake. Open that goddamn door. Get out of the way.
No, Tony, there's been people. Watch the people out there. People out there.
Go to him live. Go to him live. Stay there. There's nothing we can do. Go to him live. Go to him. Go to him. Get him to go to him. Paul, here at the scene, you may not be able to see me. We're not allowed to use lights. Dramatic development just a few moments ago. We did hear a gunshot. At this point, we do not know exactly what it means. We heard a gunshot. There is no way of knowing what exactly developed. Just before.
Yeah, I thought he killed Hall. I mean, I knew what a shotgun sounded like, and I knew that was a shotgun.
Come on. Mac, pick that up. Mac's got it.
I don't know. All I know is...
Okay, we're getting over to George Martz.
And is Hall out of danger? Sure. We got him.
Paul, he's out of danger.
We got him. He's okay.
Do have him.
Where's Tony? I have no idea. I don't know. I don't give a shit.
What happened?
What happened? I don't know what I can't explain the shot, but.
Would you go find out for us?
I'll find out. But George Lauder.
The
hostage is out. He's okay.
The hostage is released and is all right. There is no indication yet as to what the gunshot was. There is no indication as to the condition of Tony. But Murat says the hostage is all right. The hostage is all right. We heard one shot. We do not know at this point why we heard it. But the deputy prosecutor says the hostage is all right. Okay. I've got some information, some new information. Apparently, Tony did shoot the gun, but only as a demonstration that indeed it was real. Only as a demonstration.
Get me out of this goddamn place. I'm sorry, man. You arrested me.
We'll help you, Tony.
You did not. I talked to you, and we had our plan, right? You talk about a cheap shot. No, Tony, I talked to you on the phone, and I told you I was going to bring that man out, and you said okay. No, Tony, you told me you was going to lay that shotgun down up there facing the wall and bring him down without it. You talk about a cheap shot. Now, didn't you? You talk about a cheap shot. No, that's what you told me, Tony.
Okay, there's some activity down the block here, but we're going to see what else we can find out.
Okay, let's just stay with it. I've got to go first, car.
Okay.
Go for it. Are you going to hit?
We're putting him in a car now.
What's your hit, Tony?
Hey, Bill.
Come on.
Okay. Let's step back. Let's move back. Let's move back.
More blasts.
Another shot behind us. Apparently, a single shot.
If I were Mr. Hall, I'd go home.
I don't know.
Is he still in the building?
Yeah.
Can you reconstruct what you know about the time from when they left us until all was resolved?
They went into the command, what was the command post, they negotiated and they released Mr. Hall. He walked out in the hall and we took him down to another room.
Did Tony do the release? There was more negotiation inside. You know the nature of it.
Nope, sure don't.
Who undid the wires, for example?
I don't know. I was not in the room. I really don't care. We got him. Everybody's alive. Nobody got hurt.
You think this thing was handled correctly?
Is the agreement any good that you have signed, immunity agreements? Are they valid in any way at all? Will they stand up in any court?
We promised immunity. I'm going to have a statement on this at a later time, and I would like to be able to collect my thoughts and be able to discuss it rationally. I'm very tired at the present time. I'd rather not discuss it.
Have you any precedent at this point for this kind of thing?
I just would rather not comment at this present
Is that
time.
press conference going to be tomorrow?
You'll be notified.
And we ended up down at Wishart in the holding cell down there, which is a padded cell, and they got a window about like this. I was inside with Tony alone, and all of a sudden Tony, he was about 5'6", something like that, stocky as hell, and I was about 6'2", and he had grabbed me around the neck like this and said, "Jack," he says, "I really screwed up, didn't I? I thought he was gonna break my damn neck." And I said, "Tony," I said, "well, you got some problems." I said, I didn't argue with him and I didn't agree with him. I just put the neuter in there and I got back over there toward the door and I hit on that window like this to get me the hell out of there. Then they finally opened the door and I got out. But boy, that was a scary time. I thought the guy was gonna break my neck because he's strong as a bull.
In Indianapolis, Anthony Kiritsis held a shotgun at the head of a kidnapped hostage for 60 hours, demanding a promise he would not be prosecuted. Well, he got the promise. Today, not surprisingly, when he let the hostage go, he found the promise was not worth the paper it was written on. The hostage is free and Kiritsis is in jail. Here's Mike Jackson in Indianapolis.
Kiritsis staged a bizarre news conference that lasted almost an hour. No one knew whether he would fire the shotgun and kill his hostage or others. Hostage Richard Hall's face was almost purple because the wire around his neck was so tight. Kiritsis was taken immediately to the county jail. He is charged with 7 crimes, including kidnapping and armed robbery. His bail is more than $750,000. He was arrested even though he had been promised immunity. Mike Jackson, NBC News, Indianapolis.
Question and answer session.
Mr. Mark, why was immunity denied Mr. Kiritsis? What were the details surrounding that so that he does not get immunity and is now in jail?
Immunity cannot be granted to an accused. A document was typed up and given to him which would have granted him immunity so long as the prosecutor's office honored the terms. I'll say this, there was never any intention on the part of the prosecutor's office to honor the terms.
Why was he given the grant? Was this just done a ruse to get him out of the room?
That's pure and simply it.
What's his status at this point? Is he, what's his bail? Is he going to pay it? What's that?
He's presently in jail, and the total bond is $850,000. Yes, ma'am.
George, was he aware
Hall was greeted by a standing ovation, by warm applause as he bravely faced the news media in the city-county building today. His wife was by his side, the strain of the events of the past 3 days evident on both faces. Hall had been advised by his attorneys to not answer questions on the details of his treatment as a hostage, but he did talk. He did have some things he wanted to say.
It's been a long ordeal, and my family and I are extremely grateful to God for a safe solution in this ordeal. And we're most appreciative of all those thoughts and prayers that were with us. And we can't expressed enough our gratitude.
And then more applause as Hall, obviously a strong, stoic individual, left the news conference. Many questions remain unanswered. But for now, Richard Hall says he is content to just close the door on the harrowing events of the past 3 days.
I eventually told Tony that I couldn't represent him because I'm going to end up being a state's witness in this thing, and I can't do both. I said, I'll get you a lawyer, and I'll get you a good one. That's when I got him, Oni Mullen. Well, they didn't last too long because they didn't get along. I mean, it's very difficult for somebody to get along with Tony. He doesn't want to take orders. He wants to give orders. And Oni, of course, being a lawyer, says you're going to do what I tell you to do. And how he got a hold of Stanton, I don't know.
I happened to be representing a man named Roger Drollinger at the time. Drollinger was in the Marion County Jail in a cell next to Tony Kiritsis. But Drollinger and Kiritsis got along real well, and Drollinger recommended me as a lawyer. So on Drollinger's recommendation, Kiritsis decided to hire me.
In a case of this magnitude, you research every potential legal issue that you can possibly argue. You research the insanity defense, you research jury instructions, you research every potential legal issue you can, because Tony was facing life imprisonment.
Tony, of course, didn't want this defense. His defense would have been, they had it coming. It's been an all-time loser of a defense. In fact, studies show that it's a very minute percent of people ever assert this defense, and in those cases, very few people win it.
The theory of our defense was that Tony was insane at the time of the offense. If we were to investigate Meridian Mortgage, and if we had been able to prove that Tony's allegations were true, then it would suggest that he wasn't out of touch with reality, and he was simply mad at Meridian Mortgage, and then he just took the law in his own hands. That's not a defense. Everybody saw Tony do it. Everybody saw the horror in Dick Hall's face and saw the possibility that that trigger is going to get pulled intentionally or unintentionally, and on live TV you're going to watch somebody die. Erasing those images, or at least allowing the jury to say, I can understand that the acts actually occurred, but still find somebody not guilty, was a real challenge.
Mr. Stanton said, would you like to meet Mr. Kiritsis and talk with him? In several interviews that lasted several hours each, became very knowledgeable about what had led up to this incident in his life. Well, he had a very interesting and difficult life. He was the son of immigrant parents from Greece. They were very poor, very hardworking. He loved his mother dearly. His father was apparently quite a mean man, physically violent toward the children. One of the stories he told was that at the ice cream stand that they worked at, the younger children had to go around the parking lot and pick up the empty paper cups and wash them so that they could be reused as a way of saving money. He remembers on one occasion when they didn't get all of them picked up quickly enough and a car backed over some of them, his father whipping him out in this public space in front of one of Mr. Kiritsis' friends and family, and then whoever else happened to be there in that area.
He was brought in by two very big men hanging on to him. He's very upset that people are so mean to him, that they would arrest him, that they would put him in prison and lock him up. Why would they do that to him? No, he knew what he was doing. He was doing it on purpose. This man deserves it. Where the kink in his thinking was that he had been hurt, and therefore if he was hurt, he was able to go out and do things to make it right. He would have long times where he was a good, solid citizen, and he would have other times where he was basically a wild man.
There's three things going on in a case like this, and that is, first of all, the prosecutor
is trying to make their case, obviously, beyond a reasonable doubt, and not make mistakes that are going to be grounds for appeal and the case goes up if the guy's found guilty. The defense wants to make mistakes. They want to make a shambles of the trial if they can, so there's lots of things they can argue about. And then the judge's role is to keep very tight control of the courtroom, keep tight control of the jury, and not make any mistakes that are likely to be used on appeal if he's found guilty. The defense psychiatrist said yes, he was insane at the time. The prosecution psychiatrist said no, he wasn't. And I think because the psychiatric testimony was fairly strong on both sides, I think the jury kind of just disregarded it.
We got tired of them. They all talked in clinical terms. Was Tony paranoid, or was he schizophrenic, or maybe he wasn't? So we had to try to make sense of that, and after a while, in all honesty, it got very confusing and almost pointless.
This was not the first time that Kiritsis had done something like this. This was kind of a reenactment of an incident that he had had with his own family.
Effie Kiritsis testified next. Tony's older sister had to be lifted into the witness chair as she is crippled with arthritis. She had not seen her brother for 8 years. At that time, he broke into her home with a gun and held her for 2.5 days while demanding a financial settlement for his work at the family trailer court. It was Brother Tom, however, who revealed that the family agreed to give Tony $55,000, to not send Tony to a psychiatrist, to not press charges. Ironically, the details of the agreement for Effie's release were remarkably like those demanded by Kiritsis when he held Dick Hall hostage. Linda Lupier for the News, Channel 6.
He put Tony on the stand, which was surprising, and I thought at that point, well, we're really going to hear what Meridian Mortgage did to him. And it was the same old story. Just when you thought you were going to find out what it was that they had done that really set him off, he would zing off, which made you think that, well, he just couldn't pay the mortgage, and eventually they were going to foreclose on the land. I mean, that's basically where you ended up every time. I mean, it happened several times during the testimony, and I thought, well, is that it?
They had given Tony an extension of time in which to pay his mortgage payments on the land that he was buying. They'd done this repeatedly. And then when they finally didn't, then he thought, well, this meant they were trying to cheat him. He thought that they had interfered with his efforts to develop the land and hoping that he would therefore fall behind on payments so that they could get it for the land for a low price. And there was just not evidence to back that up.
I did to Dick Hall was a terrible thing, a horrible thing. I didn't want to do it, and I tried not to do it. At that point, he burst into tears. Defense attorney Niles Stanton then led him through a narration about his early family life. His voice quivering, Kiritsis said he loved his father in spite of his strictness. He began pushing an ice cream cart 12 hours a day at the age of 9. At times, he broke down completely and needed time to compose himself. Kiritsis told a different story of the abduction of his sister, saying he was being pushed out by the family. Things became very cruel. He was very hurt by what Effie and his brothers did. The jury stared at the defendant as he told of a vow he made over his mother's casket, promising to take care of the family. He dropped a class ring in the coffin. He said he made a cross on the wall in his own blood the day he broke the oath. That was the day the family threw him out of the trailer park. And we might add, Clyde, that the courtroom was packed all day.
I'll bet. What's it look like right now for the rest of the trial?
It will probably go to the jury. The judge says maybe by next Thursday.
Okay, thanks, Linda.
We had lots and lots of jury instructions in this case. Basic instruction was at the time of the offense that he have a mental disease or defect that prevented him from understanding the consequences of his action. Even if he knew right and wrong, did he still have enough volition to be a sane person?
With that final instruction, not guilty by reason of insanity at the time of the act, not a minute before or not a minute after, at the time of the act, I thought, wow, I'm surrounded by a bunch of adults here. There ain't no way they're gonna see it different. But they did.
We had a tough time of it, and we came at it from everybody's own opinions and experience, and also in some cases correct, and in some cases faulty remembrances of what we'd heard over the last 14 days.
We were all so emotionally drained and tired. We knew he did it. It was very evident he did it from the footage that we saw. But the problem was the way the law was written. We all went back into the courtroom because we didn't think we could come to a verdict. Judge Dugan told us that, yes, I think you can come to a verdict, and he sent us back in for more deliberations.
I was prepared to tell the judge we were going to be a hung jury if that's what it took. All 12 of us had doubts. The question is whether or not they were reasonable doubts.
I don't think there was a single juror that was happy with the verdict.
We found out the votes. The first vote was 6-6. The next vote we learned was 8-4. We didn't know which way 8-4. The next vote was 10-2. The next vote was 11-1, and then it seemed to have been 11-1 forever. And then finally they had a verdict. But neither side knew which way the jury was leaning.
Seated. For the record, this is CR 77-44A. The time is 10:04 on October 21st, 1977. I'll ask the jury, and I'll ask the foreman of the jury, newly elected, do you have verdicts?
I do, Your Honor.
If you'll pass those verdicts to the bailiff, please. Okay, will the defendant, Mr. Kiritsis, please rise and face the bench, sir. The form of the verdict is, we, the jury, find the defendant, Anthony G. Kiritsis, not guilty by reason of...
I've got to say one thing.
Just a minute, Mr. Kiritsis. Just a minute, please. We further find that the defendant, Anthony G. Kiritsis, committed the act charged in count 3 of the information, and that at the time the defendant was insane, is therefore not guilty by reason of insanity. Please be seated.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Does the state wish to poll the jury?
No, Your Honor.
The court now sets at 9:00 a.m., November the 9th, 1977, as that date for a hearing pursuant to statute on the question of competency as to further action by the court in this case. With that, the court is adjourned.
I knew how difficult it was for the prosecutor to prove that he was sane. I think both sides did an extremely good job. Based on the testimony, I was surprised that the jury would think he was in fact insane when the offense was committed.
Yeah, I was in a way, because that's a very difficult defense. You got to have overwhelming evidence that a guy is wacko. And I didn't think it was there. I mean, he was up and down, yo-yo-like and everything like that. I had to think the jury may have felt a little bit sorry for Tony on his getting screwed out of that land or something like that. Something to give them an idea to give him a break.
I found him to be very honest and forthright. I could identify with the abuse he went through. To this day, I resent anybody telling me I had better. It wasn't nothing for his dad to get him up and tell him he had better get out and start humping them ice creams. He was thrust into a manhood as a child, and I can identify with that more than you know. What did he have to gain by not showing anything less than the truth? Okay? You're not going to make that stuff up.
When they took the insanity defense,
The state took the other side. He was just a mad, mean man. There wasn't nothing insane about him. Nothing. But the minute they found him not guilty, they switched and said he's crazy, he needs more tests, and he should be locked up. At that point, Tony refused to take any more tests. He said, you guys said there was nothing wrong with me. Now you're saying you want all kinds, and he wasn't, and they held him for almost 10 years in contempt of court for that reason. And that tells you what kind of guy Dugan was. He's very inadequate, in my opinion, because that could not have been the law, in my opinion. And I don't know who manipulated him. Someone did, though. I'll always believe that. I got my suspicions, but I can't prove them.
You're not in a world here where you can say things are black or white. And you have to say they're somewhere in between. Certainly, Tony did not meet the criteria for being insane. On the other hand, his behavior was insane. So what are you going to do with that? You have to work on that and chew it a bit.
Let me say something. We all live in the greatest country on earth. But this is the type of thing that undermines the liberties that my father and my mother came here from Greece for, and probably all of your ancestors. And I'm not trying to be corny. I may be a flag waver, but I wave it a hell of a lot better than John Wayne, I'll tell you that. I did not. Okay.
I lost credibility with Kiritsis. I lost credibility in the community, and I don't appreciate it. I didn't care for it one way or the other. But I had that credibility in this hand, and I had Hall's life and his wife and three children, his little girls, on this hand in my mind. Mm-hmm. And I weighed the two, and to myself said I felt that his life was, and if I could help save it, his life was more important over here than the credibility that I'd have to work to get back. This is an interesting point you bring up, because these young people here at Ball State in journalism and in radio and television are going to be faced with it more and more in the immediate years to come. Terrorism, with all the technological advances that are coming down now, and the sophisticated forms of terrorism that are being developed in Europe are coming across here as surely as we're sitting here today. The question now is, what are these young men and women as journalists going to be doing when they have a terrorist on one hand who says, I'm going to poison the water supply of New York City, and hey, it is very easy. I'm going to blow up all the transmission lines in the state of Indiana, or the electrical power lines. And that's not that far-fetched. Mm-hmm. Technologically, it's available, and it is possible. Now, if this young journalist knows this information, does he broadcast it? Does he not? Where do we go? Prior restraint. I totally disagree with prior restraint. I don't want anybody telling me that you can or cannot broadcast this at any given time. My First Amendment rights, I think, would be jeopardized and violated there. But we are going to have to think about restraints. And here I am waffling. I'm going from one side of this fence to the other. I don't know the answer. I don't know that anybody does.
The Kiritsis thing opened our eyes to a lot of things. First of all, we have these Instacams, mini cams, action cams. They're all the same thing. They're portable, instant television cameras, which our promotion departments and our news departments thought were great promotional gimmicks. You take these out and you give the impression of being everywhere live. We didn't think through the philosophical questions involved. Kiritsis finally brought it all home to us. Once you arrive at the scene of a story like a Kiritsis hostage incident, when you turn that camera on, you are setting up a life or death situation in living rooms all across the city. I don't think the question is, and I'm a little tired of some of these people who say they are the self-righteous atmosphere, the attitude of we upheld the public morality by pulling the plug on it. That's nonsense. That's not the question. The question is, should we have gone in to begin with? Should we have set up that circus atmosphere, hour by hour report saying this man may have his head blown off in your living room at any moment now, which in effect what we were saying. We set it up for people, and then to pull the plug at the moment of truth is too late. And I think the questions that need to be asked about violence and these live cameras is, when do you go in and when do you hold back? When do you stay back from the scene? Because when do you inform and when do you incite, in other words? I think this is probably the first case, maybe in judicial history, where the jury was also the eyewitness to the crime, where everyone in the jury box had not newspaper clippings or hearsay evidence to go by. They saw it happen, either live or in replays. So when all of those sober arguments were made by a criminologist and psychiatrist about this man's mental condition, I'm convinced that, and I have no evidence other than my own thoughts on this, that going through the minds of the jury were not all of those arguments they were hearing, but what they saw that night when John Wayne, who was receiving an award, suddenly turned into Tony Kiritsis holding a gun to this man's head in their living room. I mean, my first reaction was, this is crazy. He's crazy. And the jury ruled he's crazy, and therefore innocent.
Tony became kind of an annoyance to people after a period of time. I'm not going to mention any names, but I got a call from a television news anchor who is a friend of mine, and I was working at another television station at this time, and said, "Are you getting calls from Tony?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "So am I." I said, "What are you saying?" I said, "Tony," I tell him, "I'm sorry, you had some bad breaks, there's nothing I can do for you at this point. I can't help you." And sadly, and I think this is a moment of honesty in journalism, is that Tony was an old story by that time. And maybe he should not have been. But we were all in a very competitive business, and we just didn't see a lot of value in spending a lot of time in pursuing the Tony Kiritsis story ad nauseum. But maybe it should have been pursued. In retrospect, maybe it should have been, but none of us made that call. Most of us made the call to just let it go until somebody sort of examines, the significance and the legacy. So good for you.